Dear students, welcome to the fourth session of our first chapter, Solid State. Today we will discuss about the number of atoms in a cell. And cell is of two types, primitive unit cell and centered unit cell. Let's see the first one, primitive unit cell. This is a diagram where we can explain the primitive unit cell. And here we can see a 1 cube represents a unit cell. So how many cubes are here in this crystal? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 cubes are there, or 8 unit cells are there. And we know that each unit cell is having 8 corners. That means we were learning primitive unit cell as 8 constituent particles which are present at its corners. The same sentence is here written. Primitive cubic unit cell has atoms only at its corners. That means 8 corners, they will be having the 8 constituent particles. Each atom at a corner is shared between 8 adjacent unit cells. Now when we take one of the corner, it will be shared between 8 adjacent unit cells. With this diagram we can understand that. And how the 8 unit cells are there? 4 units are in the same layer and 4 will be at the upper or lower layer. Therefore, only 1/8 of an atom. 1/8 of an atom. This point you have to remember. Only 1/8 of an atom. It can be molecule or ion. Actually belongs to a particular unit cell. So with this we can understand the primitive unit cell has a contribution of one atom as 1/8. 1/8 of an atom is only a part of the unit cell. And this can be represented in 3 different ways. Let's see the diagram A, B and C. The first diagram shows the small spheres are there. It's a cube or a unit cell where the 8 corners are there and it represents a primitive unit cell. This represents only the spheres or the positions of where the atom or the molecule is sitting or occupying, not its actual size. So it can be said as open structure. While the second one is where we are having the particle's actual size. The full size is represented here. So here this first sphere represents this one, 1. This one is 2. This is the second sphere. So it's just close to each other or attached to each other. So this figure B depicts space filling representation of the unit cell with actual particle size. Then the third one is showing the actual portion of different atoms present in a cubic unit cell. Now you can see here 1/8 contribution of each constant particle in a cube. So with this we can understand that these are the different ways how we can represent a primitive unit cell. Now in all, since each unit or each cubic unit cell has 8 atoms on its corners, the total number of atoms in one unit cell will be what? We have to use this formula, that is 8 atoms into what is the contribution? 1/8. So we simplify it and we'll get the answer as 1 atom. This is the number of atoms present in a primitive unit cell. And this is very important for doing the problems. If it is a primitive unit cell, the number of atoms will be 1. Now, let's see the body-centered cubic unit cell. With this itself, we can understand the first picture of first diagram. 8 corners, 8 constant particles are there. Along with that, the center of the body or center of the cube, there will be one constant particle. So this is said to be body-centered cubic unit cell, or BCC. Now the figure 1 is a open structure, whereas figure B is the space filling model, or we can see the actual size of the particle. Now you can see here the 4 corners, 4 particles. Along with the back side, 1, 2, 3 and 4 is not seen here. because the center one is here. Center or the body, one particle was there. This is shown here. So the last diagram will be what? The portion of the atoms actually belonging to the unit cell. Now here when we see this diagram, we can see the corners will be having what? 1/8 contribution. But what about the center of the particle? It's completely unique, or it's single. That means the full particle is acting, or the contribution is given. So that means when we want to find out the number of atoms, what we have to use? We have to use the formula. The first one, of course, the 8 corners. What participation is there? 1/8 per corner atom. It becomes 1 atom. 8 into 1/8. Along with that, body centered, how we will write how many atoms are there at the center? 1. When body center atom is there, we'll write 1. And what is its contribution? Full contribution is there, so we'll write 1 into 1. And it becomes 1 atom. But when we want to write as a whole that body centered cubic unit cell, we have to add up these two. So it becomes 1 plus 1. And the answer will be the number of atoms per unit cell will be 2. So this is how we are finding out the number of atoms in a cell. Now let's see this face-centered cubic unit cell. Face-centered cubic cell, or FCC, contains how many atoms? All the atoms are present at the corner. Along with that, the center of the faces, the constituent particles will be present at the cube. So this diagram shows where we are having the 8 corners of a cube. Along with that, one face is here. This face, the atom will be there, means the sharing will be here. The next cube will be sharing this face. Now you can see here, each atom located at the face center is shared between 2 adjacent unit cells. So how we will write? Only 1/2 of each atom belongs to a unit cell. 1/2 of each atom belongs to a unit cell. So it's not complete right now, because we know that when we are saying about face-centered cubic cell, 8 corners, 8 atoms are there. What is its contribution? It is 8 into 1/8. So it becomes 1 atom. Then comes the face-centered atoms. That is, all the faces, the atoms are there. So how many phases are there? 6 phases are there. So 6 into what is its contribution? It's half. So 6 into 1/2. And we will get what? We will get the answer as 3. Now, see this one. The total number of atoms per unit cell will be 1 atom plus 3 atoms, giving 4 atoms. So this is for the face-centered cubic cell. And the 3 pictures or the diagrams are here, where we can see the first one, open structure. All the 8 corners, the 8 constant particles are there, along with the 6 faces, 6 constituent particles. So this is the open structure. Second one, the particle size is here in this diagram. Each will be having the different sizes. The contribution of each particle, when we are saying, you can see here 8 corners, 1/8 contribution is there. What about the face? Half of the sphere is shown here. That means 1/2 contribution is given by the face particles, or the face constituent particles. So this, we can find out the number of atoms present in a unit cell. Now in general, when we it's very easy when we learn this way. The number of atoms per unit cell in a cubic lattice. Simple cubic cell, 1 atom per cell. Body centered, 2 atom per cell. Face centered, 4 atom. And what about the end centered? It will be 2. And here we didn't discuss about the end face center, because that one is not there in your textbook, NCERT textbook, to learn or to explain the things. Now if you want to understand what we can think, just see the end centered, how it is. It was 8 corners for the cube's end centered cubic cell. How it is? 8 corners, 8 atoms will be there. So that is how we can explain 8 into 1/8 contribution. So it becomes 1 atom. Then what about the end face centered? And 2 opposite faces, or the opposite faces will be having having constant particle, any of the opposite faces. So how many opposite faces they will be having? Only 3 opposite faces will be having. So from there, only one opposite face, the constant particle will be there. And what about the contribution? There the contribution will be half face. So how we can write is 2 faces, that means 2 into half. 2 into 1/2, it becomes 1 atom. So overall, when we write the number of atoms present in n face-centered cell, we'll get 1 plus 1 is equal to 2 atoms. So this way we can find out the number of atoms present in cubic unit cells. Thank you, and we will continue in the next session.